Good morning, everyone. We are starting the broadcast. I see there are a few people still signing up, so let's wait 2 minutes, then we'll start. Good morning again. Welcome, everybody. I see there's still a few signing up. Let's wait another minute, and then we'll definitely start. Okay, good morning. I'm Wendy Peppler, Chief Education Specialist for Languages, and we'll start now. But before we begin with this webinar, let's cover some of the basics again. I know you are all acquainted to it, but maybe there are a few new people. If you are struggling to hear me, make sure your audio is on and your speaker volume is turned up. You will automatically be muted when joining the session. Should you have any questions, you can ask your question in the question box below or on your right, or raise your hand. To raise your hand, click the icon on your dashboard below or on your right. After this presentation, download this presentation and additional resources in the handout box below or on your right. You will also find all this information in the question box below or on your right. Remember to send us your questions. I will attend to the questions after the session by answering them, and you will receive them via email. Attendees are encouraged to ask questions and leave comments. However, irrelevant or inappropriate comments will result in the attendee being dismissed from the session. If you did not get your question, please send an email to academics@impact.co.za. Questions in the question box will be answered and made available afterwards. If you did not receive the questions and answers, please send an email to info@impact.co.za. You can also visit the Impact YouTube channel for recordings of the session. Once again, I'm going to go through the June examinations. We are not sure yet whether you are going to write the June examinations or not, but by preparing, you are also preparing for the November examinations. Study the following for paper 2, poems, sonnet 104, the follower, anthem for doomed youth, sunstrike, lament for a dead cow, the wild doves at Louis Trichardt, and notes on answering an unseen poem. Then the novel, The Great Gatsby. Now this week will be the last week I attend to anything for the June exams. As from next week, I'm going to start with term 3 work. The Great Gatsby, you've got to study the entire novel for June as well as for November. Today we're going to look at the Great Gatsby, the symbols and some of the themes that appear in the book. Symbols. Firstly, the green light. There were actually a few who asked questions about the green light last week. The green light is situated at the end of Daisy's East Egg dock and is barely visible from Gatsby's West Egg lawn. The green light represents Gatsby's hopes and dreams for the future. Gatsby associates it with Daisy. In chapter 1, he reached towards it in the darkness as a guiding light to lead him to his goal. Gatsby's quest for Daisy is broadly associated with the American dream. The green light also symbolizes that more generalized idea, again, of the American dream. In chapter 9, Nick compares the green light to how America, rising out of the ocean, must have looked to early settlers of the new nation. The Valley of the Ashes. The Valley of the Ashes is situated between West Egg and New York City. It consists of a long stretch of desolate land created by the dumping of industrial ashes. It represents the moral and social decay that results from the uninhibited pursuit of wealth, as the rich indulge themselves with regard for nothing but their own pleasure. It also symbolizes the plight of the poor, like George Wilson, who lives among the dirty ashes and loses their vitality as a result. That's not only George Wilson, but all the poor living in that valley. The eyes of Dr. T.J. Ickelberg. The eyes of Dr. T.J. Ickelberg are a pair of fading, bespectacled eyes painted on an old advertising billboard over the Valley of the Ashes. They possibly represent God staring down upon and judging American society as a moral wasteland. The connection between the eyes and Dr. T.J. Ickelberg and God only exists in George Wilson's grief-stricken mind. To Nick, the eyes seem to symbolize the haunting waste of the past, which lingers on though irretrievably vanished, much like Dr. Ickelberg's medical practice. The eyes can also be linked to Gatsby, whose own eyes, once described as vacant, often stare out, keeping vigil meaning God, over Long Island and the green light. East and West. Tom, Daisy, Jordan, Gatsby, and Nick all come from other places than the East. The American idea of going west to seek and make one's fortune on the frontier turned on its ear in the 1920s stock boom. Now those seeking their fortune headed back east to cash in. Although Gatsby suggests there is a kind of honor in hard work, making money, the quest in the East is nothing more than a hollow quest for money. The split between the eastern and western regions of the United States is mirrored by the divide between East Egg and West Egg. The West is the people making their fortunes. They are as hollow and corrupt as those from the East. Gatsby's Mansion. Gatsby's Mansion symbolizes two broader themes of the novel. First, it represents the grandness and emptiness of the 1920s boom. Gatsby justifies living on his own by filling the house weekly with his parties. Second, the house is the physical symbol of Gatsby's love for Daisy. Gatsby used his new money to create a place that he thought matched the houses of the old money that had taken her away. Later on in this presentation, we'll discuss new money and old money. Now we come to the themes. The following are some themes found in The Great Gatsby, and I hope if you study these themes very well, they might tie up with literary essays that you may receive in the exams, and that you might sometimes need to combine the knowledge that you picked up during these discussions in one theme and tie it up with a discussion in another theme. So the themes I'm going to discuss today is society and class, the theme of love in various aspects, the American dream, and religion. Now, I suppose when you were reading the book, you didn't pick up much about religion, but it could be quite important. The first theme, society and class. Distinct social classes, old money, new money, no money. That's the various people you will find in The Great Gatsby. Those who have old money, those who have new money, and those who have no money, or not literally, but the poor. In The Great Gatsby, there are two distinct types of wealthy people. First, the Buchanans and Jordan Baker, who were born into wealth. Their families have had money for generations, hence they are old money. The old money people don't have to work. They rarely even speak about business arrangements. They spend their time amusing themselves with whatever takes their fancy. Daisy, Tom, Jordan, and the distinct social class they represent are possibly the story's most elitist group. The old money people dislike Gatsby and other people like him in the 1920s, as he has only recently acquired his money. They think he can't possibly have the same refinement, sensibility, and taste they have. Here we pick up the sense of snobbishness. Not only does he work for a living, but he comes from a low-class background. They think he cannot possibly be like them. In many ways, they are not like the new money people. They are often not nice people. They are just judgmental and superficial, failing to look at the essence of the people around them. They live as if they are superior, however unrealistic that may be. Now, the second group, the new money people. The people with newly acquired wealth are not necessarily much better. Gatsby's partygoers. They attend parties, drink Gatsby's liquor, eat his food, never even taking time to meet their host. I think you would have noticed that when you read and you found that Nick was living next to Gatsby and he was invited to the party, but he had never seen Gatsby. And when he was at the party, he was trying to find out who Gatsby actually is. And I think if we think of that, when he actually did meet Gatsby, he did not know that. And he was telling Gatsby what a strange party this is, as he hasn't even met the host yet. Then Gatsby told him, but I am Gatsby. They don't even bother to wait for an invitation. They just show up. When Gatsby dies, all the people who attended these parties mysteriously became too busy, abandoning Gatsby when he could no longer do anything for them. If you remember, at the end of the novel, there were only 2 people that attended Gatsby's funeral. Their concerns are largely living for the moment, partying, and other forms of excess. Then we get the no money people. The author uses the people with no money to convey a strong message. Nick, although he comes from a family with a little bit of wealth, does not have the capital of Gatsby or Tom. Nick shows himself to be an honorable and principled man. Myrtle comes from the middle class. She is trapped in the Valley of Ashes and spends her days trying to make it out. Her desire to move up the social class leads her to have an affair with Tom. She distances herself from her moral obligations and has no difficulty on cheating on her husband when it means she gets to lead the lifestyle she wants, even only for a little while. I think it was mentioned last week, yes it was, when we were doing the characters, that Myrtle actually had this affair with Tom with no advantages as such. She does not realize that Tom and his friends will never accept her in their circle. They always have to meet at a hotel, and Tom rents an apartment or flat for her where they can meet, but he never takes her to his side of town. Myrtle is no more than a toy to Tom. Now the theme of love. The theme of love I've split in 2 sections, but if you get the question on the theme of love, you will combine them, the love in marriage and the love in the relationships. Daisy and Tom. Tom and Daisy were married 3 years when the novel started at the beginning of the novel. They both come from incredibly wealthy families. They live on fashionable East Egg, marking them as the old money class. Why old money? Because they both came from wealthy families and inherited the money. As Jordan relates in a flashback, Daisy almost changed her mind about marrying Tom after receiving a letter from Gatsby, but eventually went through with the ceremony. Let's take you back a bit in the novel where Daisy met Gatsby. Gatsby had been trained by Cody to appear as if he has money. So Daisy fell for him thinking he has money. And then Gatsby had to go to war. And in the meantime, when he was away so long, she met Tom and decided to marry him. But just before the wedding, she received this letter from Gatsby that made her wonder whether she should go through with the marriage. Daisy appeared quite in love at first, but the realities of the marriage, Tom's numerous affairs, have worn on her. According to Jordan, Tom even cheated on her shortly after their honeymoon. They are described as a close, bored couple. Neither Myrtle's infatuation with Tom or Gatsby's deep longing for Daisy can drive a wedge between this couple. Despite the lying, cheating, and murdering that occurs during the summer, Tom and Daisy end the novel just like they began it, careless, restless, and yet firmly united. Myrtle and George Wilson. Myrtle and George's marriage appears fractured from the beginning. At first, Myrtle was in love with George. She, however, overestimated his money and breeding. She found herself married to a mechanic and living over a garage in Queens in the Valley of Ashes. She stays married though. Divorce was uncommon in those days. She also had no access to wealthy family members or any real opportunities. George is quite devoted to her. Shortly before the start of the novel, she begins an affair with Tom Buchanan. She sees the affair as a way out of her marriage because Tom has got money and he spends money on her. To him, that bit of money he spends on her is nothing because he has so much. Tom sees the affair as just a disposable mistress, leaving her desperate and vulnerable once George finds out about the affair. I think when we spoke last week, you should remember that when he found out that she was having an affair, he did not know with who the affair was. He locked her up upstairs in a room in their house because he planned to get away and go back west. George locks Myrtle up when he discovers the affair. Now we go to love and relationships in the novel. Daisy and Gatsby. 5 years before the start of the novel, J. Gatsby was stationed in Louisville before going to fight in World War I. Dan Cody had taught him how to act like one of the wealthy. I can just say Dan Cody was his mentor at that stage. Daisy, 10 years younger than Gatsby, took him for someone of her own social class. Again, here you can see how social status played a role in the 1920s. Gatsby fell in love with Daisy and the wealth she represents, and with him. Gatsby had to leave for the war, and by the time he returned, Daisy had married Tom Buchanan. Gatsby is, despite this, determined to get Daisy back. That is part of his American dream. He falls in with Meyer Wolfshim, a gangster, and gets into bootlegging and other criminal enterprises to make enough money to be able to provide for Daisy. I last week explained to you what bootlegging is. Bootlegging is being involved with illegal business. He ignores the fact that she is married to Tom and has a child. Daisy's memories of Gatsby are clouded, while Gatsby has been so obsessed with Daisy that he knows the exact month they parted and has clearly been counting the days until their reunion. Gatsby gets the chance to show off his mansion and enormous wealth to Daisy. She breaks down after a very conspicuous display of Gatsby's wealth through his many colored shirts. If we say she breaks down and cries when she sees everything that he has accumulated. She feels guilty that Gatsby has attained so much for her. In a flashback, we hear about Daisy and Gatsby's first kiss through Gatsby's point of view. The relationship is, however, very uneven. Gatsby has literally poured his heart and soul into it. Daisy loves or has affection for Gatsby, but does not idolize him in the same way. Daisy can never live up to Gatsby's huge projection of her. Despite Daisy's rejection of Gatsby at the Plaza Hotel, that was where Gatsby had persuaded her to tell Tom that she no longer loves him and wants to join Gatsby, and then she withdraws this and does not want to do it. And despite this, he still believes that he will get her back. His devotion is so intense, he doesn't think twice about covering for her and taking the blame for Myrtle's death. Remember, that was when she was driving his yellow car and she knocked Myrtle over, causing her death, and he took the blame and said he was driving. Love and relationships continued. Tom and Myrtle. Remember, Tom is married to Daisy. Myrtle sees the affair as romantic and a ticket out of her marriage. Myrtle thinks that Tom is spoiling her specifically and that he cares about her more than he does. He, after all, stops to buy a dog for her because she says it's cute and insists that she wants one. Tom sees it just as another affair. Myrtle is one of a string of mistresses. The money Tom spends on her is not a big deal to him. He has so much. He casually throws away the $10, not caring, since he has so much money at his disposal. The pair has undeniably physical chemistry and attraction to each other. Myrtle believes Daisy's Catholicism is what keeps her and Tom apart. She knows very little about Tom or the upper class, and is thus an easy person for Tom to take advantage of. Nick and Jordan. The only couple without any prior contact before the novel begins. Jordan is a friend of Daisy's who is staying with her, and Nick, remember, is a cousin of Daisy's. Nick meets Jordan when he goes to have lunch with the Buchanans. Nick immediately has a physical attraction to Jordan when he meets her. Despite Nick needing to break off his relationship back home, he gets closer to Jordan. Nick is pulled in by her posture, her charming face. Her attitude and status are, however, more alluring than her looks alone. After the woman at home, the woman he dates briefly in his office, that was Myrtle's sister, Jordan would possibly be a step up for Nick in terms of money and class, which speaks to Nick's ambition and class consciousness. Remember, we said he had new money and or little or no money, but what he had acquired is new, but Jordan is part of the old money group that inherited money. Unlike other women, Jordan isn't clingy. She lets Nick come to her. Nick seems attracted to how detached and cool she is. After Myrtle's death, Nick finds Jordan's callous disregard for everyone but herself repulsive and breaks up with her. She was indifferent about Myrtle's death and didn't seem upset about it and had no sympathy about it, and this worried Nick and he broke up. Our next theme we are going to discuss is the American dream. It is true that none of the characters lives out the original American dream. The American dream suggests that every person can become a success through hard work, but the dream has also become corrupted by the pursuit of wealth and power. When tainted by money, the dream is hollow. So I think now you will pick up that the American dream is all about wealth. Gatsby might seem to be a successful American dreamer, as he has mastered the acquisition of great wealth and the reinvention of self to become what he has wanted to be. He represents those who have recently acquired wealth, the new money people. Gatsby, however, has links to organized crime, and the expectation of the original American dream was that its attainment should be moral, in other words, not linked to crime. Gatsby at first aspires to the achievement of happiness through hard work and ability. His society, channeled through his mentor, Dan Cody, teaches him to be ruthless, even criminal, in his pursuit of the dream. Gatsby is a man of imagination, a romantic, and merges his dream with the idea of Daisy, a fairy tale figure of the imagination only partially based on the real person. Gatsby becomes a dangerous criminal obsessed with a woman unworthy of his dream. The Buchanans and their associates represent those who inherited their money. They too might seem to be living out the American dream. Their lives, however, are hollow, empty, directionless, and shallow. They drift from day-to-day activity to activity. They've got no goals for the day. There is no drive to be something better, or to attain, or to create something better. They show themselves to be morally corrupt. Tom has inherited money. His moment of fulfillment came when he was a star college football player. He has no dream. He and Daisy are neither happy nor unhappy. They are merely restless and unfocused. Daisy lives the life of the idle rich, not knowing what people do. Daisy is happy to allow Gatsby to take responsibility for the killing of Myrtle Wilson. Neither Daisy nor Tom respond in any way to Gatsby's death. They do not attend the funeral, they leave town. Daisy is sufficiently in love with Gatsby to get drunk the night before her wedding to Tom, but she places financial security, social standing, and comfort above all else, and is finally at home with Tom and his associates. No one in the Valley of Ashes lives out the American dream. The Valley of Ashes, the area between West Egg and New York City, is a moral wasteland where people's dreams have turned to ashes. The Valley of Ashes represents moral and social decay resulting from the selfish pursuit of wealth, irrespective of the effects on others. Myrtle and George Wilson are inhabitants of the Valley of Ashes and are the major representative losers in the class struggle. Myrtle desperately becomes a rich man's mistress in order to get somewhere. George Wilson runs a failed business and is eventually confronted with the fact that he has a failed marriage. The partygoers are satirically depicted. They are aimless, and some of their names suggest animals and undesirable characteristics. Jordan is quite famous and successful, but she is a cheat at golf. She cannot manage a meaningful relationship. Wolfsim is very successful, but his version of the American dream has to do with big-time crooked gambling, murder, and mayhem. Sorry. Nick is essentially sad. He faces turning 30 with a bleak sense of diminishing possibilities. His affair with Jordan fizzles out drearily. Myrtle, like Gatsby, is from the lower class and dreams of escape to the upper class. She thinks Tom is her way out and upward. She wants to go to the West. This is one aspect of the American dream. Success, fame, appreciation, even adulation, money. The very nature of her dream to marry into the upper class is an illusion. But she is destroyed. Her death has obvious symbolic significance in that she is, however accidentally, killed by a member of the privileged classes and her rival for Tom. She is simply too powerless in the real America and world as opposed to the one the dreamers dream about. Now, the last theme that I am going to discuss today, religion. Now, often you'll be able to, in a question, depending on how the question is set, combine religious with status, social class, etc. Symbols of God in this novel represents an all-seeing, uninvolved God, sees the immoral actions but doesn't interfere. Dr. T.J. Eckelberg, representing God, is supported by Wilson's claim that God sees all. This isn't literally representing God. This is Wilson's idea of God watching over them. There is not much religion in The Great Gatsby mentioned, and we'll pick up a real lack of religion in the main characters. Characters like Gatsby, Tom, and Daisy have no mentioned religious affiliation. Their blatant disregard of prohibition shows that they didn't support it. Prohibition being obtaining riches and other things illegally, which many churches and their members did. They're all self-centered, excessive drinkers, and they lie to achieve what they want. These are all things most religions do not support. Immoral things the wealthy characters were involved in. Excessive drinking, bootlegging, breaking the law of prohibition, extramarital affairs, lying, selfishness, lack of responsibility, violence. The lack of religious beliefs in Gatsby, Daisy, and Tom affect their morality. George Wilson. George Wilson appears to have a stronger set of morals than the wealthy characters in The Great Gatsby. He doesn't have the means to drink and party, but also doesn't express the desire to. He is faithful to Myrtle. He makes an honest living out of his garage. Wilson's mention that sees God everything, you'll see that words have been turned around in the novel, in other words, what he is saying, God sees everything, shows that he has some belief in religion. Wilson is in the lower class. They have a stronger belief in God than the upper elite in this novel. His religious belief isn't shown until his wife's affair is exposed. Okay, I've come to the end of the presentation. If you have any questions, please post them in the box, and we'll give you a bit of time to do that. Then I will be answering these questions, and they will be sent out to you. If you are not registered with MPOC, contact us at info@mpoc.co.za. Thank you for attending this presentation. I hope you have learned something out of that. You will have a few minutes time to download a copy of this presentation for your benefit. We will give you a bit of time for that. Thank you and goodbye.